Hi, thank you so much for joining me today for this mental fitness webinar. My name is Laura Barker, and after 20 plus years of HR, I shifted gears and have become a certified career coach. Nowadays, I help leaders identify their challenges and find solutions by exploring who they are and identifying what they want. Gaining mental fitness skills is the key differentiator for top leaders, athletes, and professionals. Why? Because when you know how to shift from a negative to a positive mindset, you have the upper hand in every circumstance and opportunity. For today's agenda, what we're going to be talking about today is the definition of mental fitness. Then we're going to move on and talk about root cause analysis. Finally, I'm going to walk you through the process of intercepting your saboteurs, powering up your sage brain, and choosing the sage response. Now, I know all of this doesn't make any sense to you, but I hope by the end of this that I'm able to explain this clearly so you can understand the benefits of mental fitness. So what is mental fitness? Let's start with the definition. Mental fitness is about growing the 3 core mental muscles to thrive in challenging times. Those 3 muscles, which we'll come back to again and again, are the saboteur interceptor, powering up the sage brain, and choosing the sage response. As I said in my opening, really what we're doing with mental fitness is learning how to respond to life's challenges with positive as opposed to a negative mindset. And there's so much power in that. Let's talk about the impact. It impacts your peak performance because when you are in a positive frame of mind, you can react, you can respond in a better way. Imagine being a basketball player at a key game. The ball comes at you and you are in the right frame of mind, a positive frame of mind. You can see not just what's in front of you, but everything around you. With that spatial awareness of where all the players are and where you need to go, you are an effective player, way more so than you are when you are in a fear-based mode and you can only see straight ahead. So mental fitness impacts peak performance. It also impacts your peace of mind and your sense of wellness. What you're going to learn through this discussion is how much our saboteurs impact our peace of mind. If there's a lack of awareness around when those saboteurs come up, we're not aware that we're actually being led by them. And that negative energy impacts how we see ourselves and our impact on others. And thirdly, mental fitness impacts healthy relationships. Because of something called mirror neurons, what happens is when we present ourselves positively, when we feel positive, the mirror neurons in the person in front of us respond in a positive way as well. This happens on a neurological level. And the same is also true in the reverse. When we think negatively, when we are presenting and feeling negative, that gets projected to others and creates a contagion of negativity through these mirror neurons. So mental fitness in sum impacts your peak performance, wellness, and healthy relationships. This is based on lots and lots of research. And while I don't want to get caught up in the science of that, there's plenty of information in that in the book, Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Chamine. What I want to highlight to you is that this covers 4 different areas that are happening in the world today. One, of course, is positive psychology. Another is performance science, and there's lots of work around this performance science, particularly with athletes. Thirdly, there's neuroscience. I've already touched on that by talking to you about the mirror neurons. And lastly, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. All of these are affected by and are part of the research behind mental fitness that I'm talking to you about today. So that is the generic term for what we're talking about, but altogether, this program is about positive intelligence, which is often nicknamed PQ for Positive Intelligence Quotient. Think of IQ, think of EQ. In this case, we're talking about PQ, positive intelligence. So this research includes results from hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams, not only from one-to-one discussions, but also through team discussions and large group discussions. It's also including research from Stanford students, because the person who started positive intelligence was a Stanford lecturer. World-class athletes have used this to understand how to shift from a negative to a positive frame of mind. And 500,000 participants from 50 countries have used this. So while this program is based out of the United States, its application is universal and is used, quite frankly, throughout the world. Again, this research is summarized in the New York Times best-selling book, Positive Intelligence, which has been translated into 20 languages. So now let's shift focus. I've given you some of the research background. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty. What I want to explain to you, the magic of positive intelligence is its ability to get to the root cause of the negativity that we feel within us. And what this does, it results in a radical simplification of all the things that are swirling about inside of us that we are either not aware of or we're aware of and don't know how to address. Through the tools you're going to learn in this session, you'll see how you can do this. And it's very simply explained and understood. So what I want you to think about when we talk about root cause analysis is think about painting. Imagine a painting by your favorite painter. Doesn't matter who it is, but just think of a Van Gogh painting. In the end, all Van Gogh has to have on his painter's palette is these three colors: red, blue, yellow. At the root of the thousands of colors that you will see in a Van Gogh painting is these three colors: red, blue, and yellow. And what I'm getting at here is a visual representation of how this mental fitness works by getting to the root cause of this moving from negative to a positive mindset. At the root of this factor analysis research, you're going to see there's only three core muscles. One is the saboteur interceptor. Two is sage. And three is self-command. Like I said, you don't know the details of what this looks like, but what I want to start with is an overview so we have a sense of where we're going. We're going to talk about saboteurs, we're going to talk about sage, and then we're going to talk about the self-command muscle, which is the mechanism for shifting from saboteur to sage mode. All right. So at the root, you may think there are thousands and thousands of different ways that we can be negative and the way we can self-sabotage, but the truth is there are only 10, and that's what this research has shown. We can boil everything down to 10 saboteurs, not thousands. That makes it a lot simpler to grasp and to understand in terms of how it affects you personally. The SAGE response, which we will be discussing, is that there are 5 ways, 5 SAGE powers that you can use to respond to every circumstance and opportunity, both positive and negative. You'll see whatever it is, you can shift to this power mode in order to respond in a positive way. So let's now break that down. As I said, intercept saboteurs, power up the sage brain, and choose the sage response. So right now, we're going to talk about intercepting saboteurs. As I told you, there are 10 saboteurs in total, but there's one saboteur that every single person the world over has. The one that every single person has the world over is the judge. There are three modes of the judge. We judge ourselves, we judge others, and we judge circumstances. What does that mean? Judging ourselves is something we understand very well. It's the voice of the inner critic chattering away, telling you all the things you've done wrong or will do wrong. It's that voice that wakes you up at 3 a.m. in the morning saying, "Oh my gosh, how could you do something so stupid? You are so incompetent." Or it's that voice that says, "You're going to fail. You're not ready. You're never going to be able to do it." Does that sound familiar? That is the judge when we're judging ourselves. The other form of the judge is judging others. Again, this is something we're quite familiar with. The comparing, the contrasting, the competing, the judgment of others comes from this place where we're saying what is wrong with somebody else, ultimately. A quality, a trait, whatever it is. And lastly is judging circumstances. This is the one I think a lot of people aren't familiar with. But the truth is, we judge circumstances all the time. And what I mean by that is we put ourselves in that judgment mode of circumstances when we use that if statement or when statement. When X happens, then I will be happy. So it can present as delayed gratification, a waiting of the perfect circumstances before you give yourself that permission to be happy. You can say, "I can't be happy in this circumstance because I only have A and I don't have B, C, or D." So we actually judge circumstances all the time. We're just not always aware that we're doing it. And there is a cost to that judgment of ourselves, others, and circumstances. As you can see here, I pulled up a picture of Judge Judy as a visual representation of one of the modes of the judge, or all three, quite frankly. I also have a newsletter about this, as you can see below, if you're interested in reading it, that talks about the mode of the judge in more detail. So everyone has the judge, but what we also have are accomplice saboteurs. So there are 9 of them. And within these, that's it. It summarizes, as you can see, each of these are represented with an image, an icon. And I'm not going to go through every single accomplice saboteur. That's not the best use of our time right now. But what I will say is everyone has these to a greater or lesser degree. And what you do is you actually focus on the top 1 or 2 accomplice saboteurs. The rest of them are not important. You focus on the first 1 or 2 and you learn the mechanisms for addressing your saboteurs, the ones that always rise to the top, most prominently when you're under stress. So these accomplice saboteurs, as I've just said, they come up under stress, and it's a way in which we self-sabotage. We don't always have awareness around it, but through this discussion of accomplice saboteurs, you do become aware of the ways that you hold yourself back, willingly and otherwise. So here are all those saboteurs. We've got the controller, hyperachiever, restless. Do you see yourself in any of these? There's the stickler, the pleaser, and hypervigilant. And then the last 3 are avoider, victim, and hyperrational. Now, you may have a sense of which one you are or which one you are not already, but there is an assessment tool that you can fill out. Just send me an email and I'm happy to share it with you so that you can find out which one your saboteurs are. But the key message here is to understand the focus that in the end, you want to focus on the top 1 or 2. And you don't want to look at, who the people are in your life that are the hypervigilant or the avoider. This is really about focusing on yourself and understanding what are the ways in which I sabotage myself in my day-to-day. And when do these accomplice saboteurs come up? Under what circumstances do they come up? If you are to do that assessment tool, I want to show you this is what the results look like. You will see your saboteurs ranked from the top to bottom. And the score doesn't matter. It doesn't, the numbers don't matter at all. The point is the listing from the top to the bottom in terms of your saboteurs. In this case, James did it and found out his number one saboteur is controller and his number two is avoider. So what this does is the model, when you do the assessment, will give you a breakdown of what does that saboteur look like? What are the lies of this saboteur? Because I guarantee you, every single saboteur tells you a lie to keep you enmeshed in the thinking of the saboteur. Here's an example of a stickler. So what is a stickler? A stickler is a perfectionist, tends to be a perfectionist, and has a need for order and organization that's taken too far. So here you're going to see some of the characteristics and the thoughts, and there are plenty more things that are on that assessment tool. But the point is to give you a picture of what these traits are. You can see here in the case of the stickler is punctual, methodical, perfectionist, can be highly critical of the self and others, and has a strong need for self-control and self-restraint. These are sensitive to criticism. Yes, this is true. This is one of the qualities of the stickler. So when you start to identify your saboteurs and what comes up with them, you can find ways to counteract that. And we'll move on to that in short order. I just wanted to give you a sense of what this looks like. So like I said, we've spent a few minutes now talking about saboteurs. The other part to this is the sage. And these are the two areas of the mind that we're going to be talking about next. So our saboteurs and our sage brain live in two very different parts of the mind. The saboteurs live in the brainstem. They're part of the limbic system. They're in parts of the left brain. Your sage is in your right brain. It's part of your empathy circuitry, and it's located in the middle prefrontal cortex. I'm giving you some of the neuroscience behind it, but really the big picture, the part that's important to understand is many of us go through life with half our brain. We go through life simply using the left side of our brain. We don't access the right side of the brain. And by using half our brain, we are not as effective as we could be by using the whole mind. What do I mean by that? Our saboteurs motivate us through negative emotions. When we are in a negative frame of mind, this is because the saboteurs have hijacked us. One, the judge, or something else. To clarify, it's not so important exactly what the saboteur is once you know them, but I can tell you that if you're feeling shame or guilt, I guarantee you that the saboteur you're experiencing at that time is the judge. So what the saboteurs do is they do motivate you, but they motivate you negatively. Unlike the sage brain, the right brain, which motivates you through positive emotions. With the saboteurs, they can generate success, but not happiness. Whereas the sage brain generates your highest success and sustained happiness. So what do I mean by this? I think most of us want to be in a place where we feel happy, where we have peace of mind, we feel content and even joy in terms of our day-to-day lives, but we don't necessarily know how to get there. You may sense that it has to do with having a positive frame of mind, or that people who are content, happy, joyous, tend to be positive people. That's because they're employing that right side of the brain. They are employing that sage brain. So when the saboteurs, like I said, they motivate you through negative emotion, the truth is you can succeed through using those saboteurs, through that negative emotion. Here's an example. Controllers. Controllers either have a binary view of life. You're either in control or you're out of control. And for a controller, it is very important to be in control. So the thing with controllers is you can imagine they try to control all the circumstances around them. And that can work and does work to some degree or a greater degree. What happens is the controller can win a battle by controlling all the circumstances and people around them, but they lose the war because what happens is they lose influence over the people that they're controlling by controlling them. So you can see that you can win battles and lose wars at the same time when you are living in saboteur mode. So what we want to do is shift from the saboteur to the sage brain. Now, I know what's going to come up for you, and this comes up for everybody. Are negative emotions good for you? And the fact of the matter is, most people think that negative emotions are great. After all, I can't tell you how many leaders I've spoken with who believe that their saboteurs, hyperachiever is a very common one, are what has led them to the success that they enjoy today. This is one of the lies of the saboteur, actually. Like I said, it can lead to success, but not to happiness. So when you ask the question, are negative emotions good for you? I want you to think of the corollary, which is pain good for you? Now, instinctively, you're probably going to say that yes, pain is good for you. If you think of putting your hand on a hot stove and you feel that pain, that's a good thing because what it's telling you is take the hand away. You want to take that hand away. That is valuable. Pain is a tool for recognizing, oh, there's an alert, there's a warning, pay attention. That's what pain is telling you. And when we're talking about saboteurs and negative emotions, I want you to remind yourself that those negative emotions, those alerts, the pain is only helpful as a 1-second alert. Remember that. It's only helpful as a 1-second alert. Staying in that negative emotion hurts your ability to see clearly and respond with empathy, curiosity, creativity, or laser-focused action. So now I hope you're seeing that your negative emotions are related to being in saboteur mode. And when you stay in saboteur mode, I want you to imagine yourself keeping your hand on that hot stove. So negative emotions aren't bad. They're good to alert you, to pay attention. Let's say you're working on a project and it's going pear-shaped. It's good to have that alert system that tells you, Laura, there's something wrong here. Pay attention to that. Yes. But the lesson here is not to stay in it. Because when you stay in that mode, you are not at your most effective. You are then motivating yourself negatively as opposed to positively. So that's the saboteurs. And now we're going to switch it up and talk a little bit more about sage brain, that right side of the brain where we have all these other qualities that not all of us have ready access to, but that are available at all times. The sage lives in the region of the brain associated with positive emotions, peace and calm, clear-headed focus, creativity, the big picture. And what we're talking about when we're talking about the sage is learning how to operate from the sage perspective. What does that mean? The sage perspective means taking every circumstance and opportunity and seeing it as a gift. There is a gift in every challenge in life. Now, when I talk about this, what's going to happen is your saboteurs are likely going to get activated. And if you are in saboteur mode, your brain is going to be telling you, oh, This is nonsense. I can't believe that there's this mumbo jumbo about positive emotions and peace and calm, and I have to access the right side of my brain. Stop. Recognize that what you've done, what's happened is this: the saboteurs have taken over. The saboteurs have done a hijacking. And that's okay. Remember, because saboteurs are good for that 1 second alert. What we want to do is not stay with that alert. All it's telling you ultimately right now, as we're having this discussion, is something is different and something is shifting, and the saboteurs are feeling a little bit threatened. So we're going to pay attention right now. I'm going to ask that you put your saboteurs on a shelf for now and just hear me out as I talk to you a little bit more about the sage brain. So just imagine the gift of being in this mode. I like to picture it, if you've ever been in flow, there's a guy named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi who wrote a book called Flow in the 90s. And it's that state of mind or when you are fully absorbed in what you're doing. You have no sense of time. You are fully present in the moment. You're enjoying what you're doing. And actually, time doesn't matter because you are fully in that moment. I picture being in flow, like being on a river, on a raft, and I'm flowing with the river. I'm going with the river. There's no resistance. I'm not fighting it. I'm not trying to get off the river. I'm just going with the river, and the river's taking me where I need to go. That's what it feels like to be in flow. And that's what it feels like when you embrace sage mode. Now, I'm going to give you a technique to activate the sage brain. And what we call this are PQ reps. So, as you know, the whole idea behind mental fitness is using some of the verbiage from physical fitness and applying it in a mental context. So, if you imagine doing your reps at the gym where you're doing your weights, etc., okay, so what we're doing now are PQ reps, mental reps. And the beauty of doing these is that you can do them any place, anywhere, with your eyes wide open. So I want you to think about this. Imagine you're in a meeting and the meeting has just gone off the rails. Now, what likely happens in this scenario is your saboteurs get activated. For example, if you're a controller, if the controller is one of your saboteurs, the controller will try and take charge of this situation. However, we've already discussed that you're far more effective when you're in sage mode. So the beauty of this technique that I'm going to teach you is it helps you make that shift from saboteur to sage mode effectively. And you can do this while you're in the meeting. You don't have to leave the room and meditate or do some mindfulness practices, which, by the way, I fully support. The beauty of this, though, is you can do that in the room and then move forward with it. So here's the example of the activation technique that I'm going to be giving you. I want you to take your thumb and your finger and rub these two fingertips together with such exquisite sensitivity that you can feel the ridges on both fingers. Focus only on that sensation. As you feel those fingertip ridges, what you're doing is giving yourself space to get back into this moment so that you can refocus. This simple technique, and it's one of many, many techniques I can explain to you, but this simple technique is enough to help you build your self-command muscles, which is what we're trying to do so that you can shift from the saboteur mode to sage mode. So let's move on to that sage response. So the 5 sage powers are empathize, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. At its core, The sage brain is focused on empathy, this notion of understanding the perspectives of others as well as yourself. Exploring is about looking at all the options on there. I like to perceive this one sometimes in the mode of an explorer like in Indiana Jones, and sometimes more in the mode of brainstorming. Brainstorming when you're coming up with ideas without judgment. A third is innovate. Once you've done that thorough explanation, in sage mode, you can innovate and come up with great new ideas that you would not have access to if you were simply in saboteur mode. In sage mode, because you have access to that creativity, there are way more ideas that come up that you can do to push and pull something forward. Navigate is helping you develop laser focus so that you can take the right path forward. Oftentimes, I find with clients, people get a bit lost. They don't know which path to take because there are so many. Navigate lets you see all the options that are out there, way more so than you would be in saboteur mode. But in sage mode, you see all those different options out there, and you can laser in on the best one and take that path forward. And finally, activate. Activate is actually taking that action to move forward, because ultimately, as humans, we are so focused on doing. We want to know that we can make a difference in ourselves, in our world around us. And that's what the activate power is for. As I said to you, this is a really simple operating system. I explained this to you at the beginning, understanding these 3 steps of the saboteur interceptor, powering up the sage brain, and using your self-command muscles, those PQ reps, to build your mental strength. All of that is an operating system that you can use to conduct yourself in business and in life. Here's how it works. I'm going to repeat it to you. If you're feeling negative emotions, stop. You're in saboteur mode. Starts with the recognition of that. 2, do some PQ reps to quiet the saboteurs and to activate sage. That is the whole purpose. It's that bridge, those PQ reps that I talked about, is the bridge to moving out of that negative mindset and into a positive one. Thirdly, assume the sage perspective. If you recall, the sage perspective is that every problem can be converted into a gift, an opportunity. You can generate the gift by using the sage powers, which we just talked about on the previous slide. But basically what they're covering is empathy, curiosity, creativity, and calm, clear-headed action. So the question that may come up for you as we come to this point is it really possible to shift from saboteur to sage, even in tough challenges? You may feel a bit skeptical about this, and I can understand why, because this is new information. But the truth is, you can. Yes, you can totally do this. All it takes is building that mental muscle strength, that self-command muscle I talked about. And the speed that you can make that shift and the depth of that shift from negative to positive depends on your ability to build those muscles of self-command. That's how you do it. Just like you go to the gym and it's not a one-shot deal or even a 1-month deal, it's a lifelong process to be physically fit. It's the same with mental fitness. You do this regularly, just like you do with physical fitness, so that you can build your mental strength and the self-command muscle to do that shift from the negative to the positive. The trick is, lasting positive change requires you to do building this muscle, which is what I've just talked about. This whole presentation, I hope I'm giving you some real insight, some takeaways that you can use going forward to identify your saboteurs and the importance of the sage response and where these reside in the brain. All of that is great insight. But the truth is, change really happens by doing. So all this insight is great, but it's not helpful if you cannot change habits. And habits take a while to form, to break and to form. So really 80% of the work is about building that mental muscle, doing those PQ reps like I described. How do you do it? It's 15 minutes a day for 6 to 8 weeks. Because success requires intense initial practice. I'm sure many of you have tried to break or create new habits, created New Year's resolutions. I've heard 21 days to create new habits. There's all sorts of research on the amount of time, etc. But what we have found is the insight behind mental fitness is really useful, but it really only succeeds when you practice it. And so this is why you need to do this 15 minutes a day for 6 to 8 weeks. The way you can imagine it for a visual is that you can't defeat a gang of 10 bandits, if it's 1 to 10, by sending one new fighter per day for 100 days. No, you need to go after. You need to go after it hard. And that's the whole point behind this, is that the success requires intense initial practice, and then it becomes a course of maintenance because you have learned the skill of how to make that shift from negative to positive. So what I'm showing you here is what the mental fitness program looks like. And basically it's a 6-week program where you watch a 1-hour video on the weekends, and you do that 15 minutes a day of practice. The way you do it is there is a mental fitness app through Positive Intelligence that you gain access to. What happens is every morning you start your day with the focus of the day, and then there are 3 challenges that will come to you over the course of the day in which you have an opportunity to do PQ reps. You have an opportunity to shift your mindset from negative to positive. And the topics, of course, differ by day and whatever the theme is for that week. There's also access to the Positive Intelligence book, which is in a PDF format, and you don't need to buy the book off Amazon or Chapters. You can just read it through the app itself. And then the most fun part is the creation of a pod. So on a weekly basis on Mondays, I lead pods where I talk about this content, not just with you, but with a small group of people, no more than 5. You want to have small groups to encourage participation, the sharing of information, because we don't just learn by doing, we also learn by hearing how other people are going through it, some of the challenges others have, the great stuff that they're getting from it, the applications of it. And so that weekly pod, which is 1 hour a week, after people have had a chance to watch the video on the weekend, is a great opportunity to set you up right for the week as you practice some of these skills that you're going to be learning in more detail. If you are interested in signing up for this, please reach out to me. Here's my email address, laura@laurabarkercoaching.com. You can also check me out on my website and reach out to me that way. I would love to do a pod with you and a few other people and get this opportunity to get to know you better and identify your saboteurs and help you learn how to shift your mindset from the negative to positive and enter sage mode. I hope this webinar has been helpful to you to learn about saboteurs, the sage, and the self-command muscles. Thank you so much for your time today. Have a great day.